Hey guys, I hope you're still halfway attentive after such a long day. I'll try to keep it short and sweet. This one's basically for everybody who's doing mobile user acquisition. I think some of the topics I'm gonna go over should be quite interesting to you. So my clicker does not, it does work. So yeah, already said, my name's Paul. I'm the co-founder of Adjust. So most of the stuff that we're building was originally prototyped by me, so I have a pretty good insight into what we do as an ecosystem. If you're not familiar what Adjust does, Adjust is an attribution company, so you use Adjust to figure out where the users that you bought from Facebook, Google, Twitter or so exactly came from, who was actually responsible for driving this user into your app, and what the ROI of your ads basically is, right? So in our dashboard, you'll be able to see what exactly the ROI of your ads are. But let's get going. The first thing, everybody's saying this, and you've probably heard it a million times already, but data is the new oil. But there's a tiny little problem with that, is that what we can see is that our clients are not really treating it like a valuable commodity. Instead, they're giving it away. That means that from the top 200 apps in the iTunes and Android store, I did a quick look, every single app of those that we track shares its entire raw data with around 10 partners. Many times actually sharing stuff like revenue data, in-app events, level-up events, but definitely stuff like all of the user sessions, all of the user installs. And that's a problem, because many times you're sharing data with advertisement networks that have a quite severe conflict of interest when it comes to collecting your data. Because sure, they can monetize your data and utilizing it for you and optimizing your advertisement, but imagine you're SoundCloud and you have a network that you give your entire audience to, and they also have Spotify as a client. Now, it would be very, very tempting for the network to sell that audience, maybe not even labeled as such, but to Spotify as well. Certainly holds a great value. And the other problem is that you have that networks rarely go and pitch to their investors and say, we're going to sell media, because that's not exactly sexy and you're not raising a lot of money this way nowadays. What happens instead is that they're going to go out and sell a data play, right? Everybody's saying we have a data play going. The problem is the data that they're referring to is yours, which I feel is a bit problematic at best. The other thing is, of course, if you're a big company, you may not want to share everything like your daily active users, monthly active users, or hell, your revenue or growth rates with pretty much everybody without any kind of fine-grained control on top of that. And what we're seeing is that that actually happens. Like, we have big gaming companies that share this data with relatively tiny networks. So you can expect that a large circle of people is acutely aware of how well are you performing or how well your latest title is performing, and actually can give quite an insight on how you're doing as a company. The other big one, of course, is cost. Taking in your user data, consuming it, and utilizing it for stuff like exclusion of active audiences or retargeting of inactive users costs money. But rarely a network actually gives you a transparent charge of it. They will not say, look, we're going to charge you XYZ dollars to do this because that's how much we have to pay to analyze the data. They're going to package it in the media deal, which means that the more sophisticated they utilize the inventory, the higher the margin usually is on the inventory. And the problem with that, of course, is that if you're spending millions of dollars and they charge you without you knowing, something like 10% on top of that, you are paying a lot of money for a technological feed that if you would try to do it yourself, or if you would give it to someone who charges you for the pure technology of it, it's vastly overpriced, but you never will be aware of it, and that's quite a problem. The other thing is, of course, that what we're seeing is that people are still very, very kind of cautious when it comes to retargeting campaigns because they're so painful to set up. You have to activate forwarding the raw data to your retargeting partner, and you typically have to wait something like 30 days till enough inactive users show up and you can retarget them. And that kind of sucks, of course. You if you want to be able to run a campaign right now, not like in 30 days, and then just figure out, oh, that partner doesn't work out, now I have to try another one, rinse and repeat. And you can't run two at the same time because they're going to end up bidding on the same exchange because there's only 2 or 3 exchanges that are relevant. They're going to end up bidding on the same user to the point of inefficiency for you. And all of these kind of problems led us to think about what we could do about it. And we developed a new product that changes how this works fundamentally. And we're currently running a beta with a couple of clients, and we can see that it is much more than we originally thought. Like the first idea was actually just more of a whim, a couple of clients asking if that's possible to use our technology as some kind of data warehouse for them. But as it turns out, it changes the way data moves through our ecosystem on a much more fundamental basis. And that is something that I'm very excited about because it gives the control back to you guys, right? Not the networks and the umpteenth retargeting partner that tries to explain to you why they need all of your raw data. So what am I talking about? We call it the audience builder. It is a segmentation tool. It's basically a data warehouse that allows you to use the data that we already collect from attribution, user profiles, create them, store them with IDFAs, push tokens, and create us from all of the events that we're also collecting and in-app revenue data that you probably share with your attribution partner, and create real-time segments out of it. So you can say, all inactive users that have spent more than $10 from North America and using an iPhone 7, I want a list of those. And the idea behind it is that once you create such a segment, it is represented as a short URL, has a token, no name, nothing, and all it returns is a list of IDFAs. So you can share that with someone without ever talking about why those people are on that list, which is actually quite powerful if you think about it. It allows you, for example, to create a list of your whales and upload it to Facebook, create a lookalike audience without ever sharing all of your revenue data with Facebook, which is one of the most common use cases that we're seeing people actually utilize in the beta, because big companies don't want to share their entire revenue data with Facebook or any other network for that matter. You don't want to say like, hey, I'm making $1 billion or $2 billion this year. And so we enable them to still get, to basically have their cake and eat it too. They can get a lookalike audience out of their whales without ever telling anybody, hey, those are my whales. And the other really cool part about this is that you no longer need to rely on specialist networks that have the technical capability. As we heard before, not a lot of networks actually have the capability to utilize the data that you're sending them. They do sometimes really dumb things on top of it, but they lack certain sophistication because it's also not their core business. With this, you give them a list of IDFAs and say, look, you can blacklist these IDFAs and you can whitelist these IDFAs and hit refresh every hour or so, so you have an up-to-date list on the segment. And that is something from a technical capability that most networks can figure out, right? You don't need them to be super smart. They don't need to sell you their data warehouse solution. So you can take any stupid old RTB bidder and basically make them run retargeting campaigns for you without any kind of setup cost. So the idea behind this is to change how stuff works. So today, you're sharing the mother load of data with tons of partners, and we want to change that to an absolute need-to-know basis with those people, where you say, look, this is a list of people you will re-engage, or this is a list of people you will target, this is a list of people you won't target. And if you feel like it, you can explain to them why, but you don't have to. Also, we want to change how fast retargeting campaigns can be set up, because they are more and more important in the future. Like we've seen this, made a significant amount of the inventory that we were tracking in 2016, and we can see that it still keeps on growing in 2017 because it gets harder and harder to acquire new users, and specifically for large installation bases, it is much more efficient to retarget the users you already have. And so this enables you to take any network and use them as a retargeting company. The other big one that I want to talk about is a little bit of my hobbies, because that's how we came across it. Was a couple of interesting, simple questions that we asked against the inventory that we're seeing. And we're seeing actually like a lot of inventory. To give you like an idea, Adjust last year tracked between $3 and $4 billion in advertisement spend mobile UA only. And this year, it's probably going to be around double that. So we have a quite significant footprint in the global spend. And that allows us some pretty unique insights to figure out where people are trying to scam you out of your hard-earned money. And the shocking thing is it was much more than we ever anticipated. The first couple of tests where we took simple stuff like Android installs that came out of data centers, because I don't think most of your Android users hide in an AWS data center or somewhere in a Google compute engine. At least it would be weird. Then we started to look at other filters, users where the clicks show no correlation to the install. So the good old click spamming, click stuffing, if you like, where people try to game attribution by sending us 1 billion clicks and just have a random attribution factor of your organic users, which is an extremely prevalent part of the fraud. And now you ask me, so how bad is it? To the best of our knowledge, it's around 10% of all installs that we're currently seeing show signs of fraud or at least irregularities in terms of you said you were wanted to attribute on clicks, and someone is sending something that certainly does not show a strong correlation between the click and the install. So it could be either a view through or something that never happened, like a fake click. So that's what I'm talking about. And the real problem with this number is it is not the real number, because what we're doing is fraud prevention. So it's not like at the end of the month we're going to send you a report and tell you, hey, you should totally not have spent that $1 million on that, because that feels a bit like a dick move. What we do instead is we reject the attribution outright. Something comes in, looks irregular, let's say it's an Android install coming from the Google compute engine. We never send the install callback to the network. We never give them credit for it. So the fraudster that runs on this network never gets his reward. And what we see is typically that within a day or two, the fraudsters simply go away, because you're not the only programmatic buyers in the market. Those guys are also, got their game quite on point. And so they simply go away and take money of someone else, I assume. So the problem is these 10% is despite the fact that we're already not giving out credit for fraud, they're still there. So this is just the lazy part of the fraudsters. The smart people simply moved on. And that is the actual big thing. It's because I can see why should I care? The reason you should care is that fraud is really, or fraud prevention is a zero-sum game. What do I mean? Every time an Just client turns on fraud prevention, and quite a few actually have, something happens, namely, this fraudster is not sitting down and reconsidering his life, right? He's not going to go back to university to become a doctor. What he's going to do is he's going to take his setup and he's simply going to steal the money from someone else who's a little bit more of a sucker and doesn't have any prevention system running. The problem is some of our competitors have absolutely no viable systems against it, because it puts you a little bit in a rock and a hard place. It doesn't exactly make you popular. If you ask most networks if they, which attribution company they would recommend, and we rarely make it to the top spot because we cost them money. If we cut out 10% of their revenue, most of the time the most profitable of the inventory, turns out fraud is profitable for a lot of people, you don't exactly win popularity contests with people. And that's where many of our competitors have taken a very laid-back approach in terms of fighting it or being aggressive and actually outright rejecting it. But what really happens is we currently reject somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million of fraud every day. That means someone else is paying that $1 million every day, right? So the more people turn on fraud prevention, the more fraud there is for everybody else, right? And that's going to be a massive problem. As we see, most of the big top 200 apps on Adjust have already turned it on. So a large part of the inventory is already protected, and it's going to get more and more and more. So if you're still on the fence if that's really a problem for you, it is in the process of becoming a bigger and bigger and bigger problem without you doing anything about it. And that could be probably a quite bad thing for you. The thing that could change that, of course, would be if everybody does the same kind of basic filtering all at the same time. The problem is that we've seen that there's a certain unwillingness to get into a confrontational position in this ecosystem, to really step up and say, look, we're the referees, we decide what is a legit attribution and what isn't. And as long as everybody else is kind of dragging their feet on it, doesn't really feel like stepping in, or only gives you the reporting and basically leaves you holding the bag at the end of the month to go to a network and say, it looks like 20% of this campaign was fraud, can I get my money back? The frauds that already got their money paid out, they're long gone, they're already now at another network, probably the network that you're going to be arguing with next month. And that doesn't really help, that doesn't really solve the problem, it just shifts the problem around. And so, unless everybody has some kind of equal level based protection, there's always going to be the disparity of people where it's extremely easy to steal money from the UA budget. And we live in such a fast-growing ecosystem, and it evolved so quickly over the last couple of years. I mean, if you think back 9 years ago, there was no ecosystem, there was nothing. 4 or 5 years ago, the sum spent on UA was laughable compared to today, where we spend billions and billions and billions of dollars. But no one ever stopped within this kind of massive growth to say, wait a second, what actually is happening in terms of like fraud? Is it a problem? How big is it of a problem? And so we're seeing also lots of new technology that's appearing, lots of really sophisticated types of fraud that I must say are extremely impressive. And the problem is going to be as more sophisticated it becomes, and some people have defenses and some don't, the disparity is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So if that's something that concerned you, I'm actually going to be around after this talk, and we can definitely have a chat about that. I planned in like 3 minutes for any questions you may have. So first of all, thank you. I hope it was not too boring at the end of this long day. And yeah, happy to answer any questions you have. No one, okay. It was a long day, I give you that. But again, feel free to just find me if you do actually have any questions, you're just feeling extremely shy about asking them. Okay, well then, thank you.